Welcome to a new episode of Dreamer Talks. Today we are with Murgatroyd. He's an entrepreneur, a content creator, and the voice behind over 100K community of followers on Instagram. He helps international and American that have the dream to move to Italy. Ciao, Rob.
Ciao. You said my name right.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was hard for me, sorry.
Perfect.
So let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
For us, actually, your journey is the perfect showcase of an American that decided to move and live to Italy. What really motivated you to leave US and to start your chapter in Italy?
Yeah, so I was a doctor I guess I still am a doctor, but I was a doctor in the US, and I was living in Atlanta at the time. And I decided that I was ready for a change in my life. I wanted to do something different. So I sold my practice, and I always had this dream of living in California. I wanted to surf, and I wanted to be at the ocean. And so my wife said, okay, we'll leave Atlanta, we'll move to California, but I have a dream. I said, what's your dream? She said, I'd love to live in Florence, but I'd love to at least spend 90 days there. So, because that's all you can spend. So I said, okay. We packed everything up. We came to Florence for 90 days. And I loved it. It was great. But I had my dream of California. 90 days was up. We moved to California. And something was missing. Something about how I felt in California was not what I thought it was going to be. And I was missing Italy a lot. And so I got busy doing other businesses. And one day my wife sees me coming into the kitchen, going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and she's mad at me. And I said, what? And she said, you know what? I said, what? She goes, I like you better in Italy. And I said, you like me better in Italy. And I started to think, well, am I better in Italy? Why does she like me better in Italy? And I started asking questions, but I was confused. So I spoke to a friend and I said, I'm really confused. I like California, but I really love Italy. He said, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's California? I said, it's a 10. I'm surfing, great weather. I'm enjoying my life. He said, where's Italy? I said, it's a 10. I love the food. I love the people. I love the art, the culture. He said, okay, if you had 2 years left to live, where would you live? And I said, Italy. That night, we watched Stanley Tucci on TV. And he said, I moved my family moved me when I was 12 years old to Florence, and it changed my life. So I paused the TV, I looked at my wife, and I said, you want to do it? She said, let's go. Wow. So we moved. That's how we wound up here.
So it was a decision with your heart?
It was a decision with my heart.
What are the biggest, let's say, lifestyle and cultural differences between US and Italy, you think?
There's a lot. So in the US, my entire identity, at least for me, was around work, productivity, more stuff, more. That was my life. And that creates this engine where you're running all the time. And I remember when I first moved here, I was walking across the bridge right outside your office here, the Santa Trinita Bridge, and I'm rushing. And I'm walking over the bridge, and these two older ladies are arm in arm, and they have a gelato, and they're taking the sun, and they're eating their gelato, and I'm behind them going, come on. I'm trying to what? And I realized, I was like, where am I rushing? What am I trying to do? And I started to realize that the Italians are prioritizing life over work. And now I've been here 4 years, and I realize that I don't even know what my Italian friends do for a living. And in America, my conversations were always around work. What do you do? What are you working on? What are your goals? And here it isn't. Here it's around living. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and we met for an aperitivo after work. I said, how'd the day go? Did you have some clients? And he said, I don't want to talk about that. I want to have fun. And it hit me. I was like, oh, I've spent my whole life, 24/7, work. And now I actually had to learn how to enjoy it and how to live more.
Many people dream of moving to Italy, but sometimes they get overwhelmed of bureaucracy. Which were the most difficult challenges, let's say, when you start your relocation process?
I remember when I first moved here, they said, you need something called a codice fiscale. And I went, okay, what's that? And they explained it's like, in America, a social security number. It's a financial code. So I said, okay, well, how do I get it? They said, you have to call this phone number. I called the phone number, and the recording said, please enter your codice fiscale number. I don't have a codice. So I learned that some things don't make a whole lot of sense. And a friend of mine gave me some advice. He said, look, I've been here for 20 years. I'm going to give you one piece of advice about Italian bureaucracy. If you listen to me, you'll live here for the rest of your life. If you don't listen, you're going to leave after 1 year. I said, okay, what is it? He said, 3 words. Don't ask why. Because it's not going to make sense. They have been doing things the way they've been doing them for thousands of years, and it's not going to make sense. Just roll with it, because this is just how it's done. And I think the other one for Americans is trying to understand which visa is the right visa for them, because there are many different kinds of visas. And I don't think a lot of Americans really understand which is the right one. So I think that would be something that's really, really important to them. A lot of people assume that if they buy a house, that they automatically can stay. But even though you own a house, you still have to leave in 90 days if you don't have the right visa. So it's really important to understand how to get the visa, because even when you get the visa and you move here, there's still more paperwork that you need to do. So understanding how to navigate what you need to do will help you with the bureaucracy, because it's confusing enough with the bureaucracy. You need to understand what to do.
Absolutely. So Rob, you create a course called How to Move to Italy.
Yep.
How came the idea, and what do people expect on it?
So I had no interest in being in the course business. That was not what I was after. But when we moved here, we had so many people asking us how to move here that we're in the Instagram and the DM, and we're saying this, and then we get 2 more questions. And we say that, and we get 2 more questions. We said, okay, let's put it together into a course. And I knew that we didn't know the law, the Italian law, so we had to bring in a lawyer. So I brought in a lawyer, and we sat down together, and we took every question that people had. It's basically the course that I wished that I had before I moved here, of everything that I needed to do. And then we made a follow-up course, which is a course when they get here of everything that they also need to do. So we put it all together into one course.
We can say that the Americans have a love for Italy and Tuscany.
We do.
But can we say that in the last, let's say, 5 years, the demand of people decide to move to Italy is increasing? This is what in Dreamer we saw.
It's called La Dolce Vita for a reason. In America, we don't have La Dolce Vita. We have happy hour, and that's about it. We got 1 hour, you get a whole life, okay? So understanding, I think, why the demand is increasing is you have to sort of think about what happens for us as an American when we come here. We eat food that makes the back of our brain blow out because it's so fresh and good and healthy. We see people that are laughing and a joy to be around. They're living La Dolce Vita, and there's a part of us that feels a loss where we're living in the States, and when we come here, that part comes alive inside of us. And we want more of it, and we want a piece of it. We want to spend for many of us, the second half of our life living in a place that makes us feel alive. And I can tell you that in the States, I lived a lot in my head. It was a lot of business. It was a lot of thinking. But here, I'm living more in my heart. And that feeling is contagious. People want to be around it. And I think Americans are just connecting to that.
Thank you, Rob.
You are so welcome.
Thank you very
So much
much
fun.
for being with us today. And we see you soon.
You got it.
And be sure to check the link below of his course and to follow his Instagram. Thanks so much, and we see you in the next Dreamer Talks with the next topic and a new guest.